Things seem to go wrong when you come to the wrong place, but it wasn't my fault. I was sitting at a red light. When a guy next to me gestured for me to lower my window, he pointed out that my tires looked flat, and I thanked him. I then went to the Walmart parking lot to check, and sure enough, there was a screw stuck in the door. The tire was letting out air, and I was so frustrated, thinking this is great, that I decided to fix it in a hurry and got into the Walmart, bought a can of tire sealant, and I pulled the screws out, which was a mistake because the tires started to go flat faster. So I rushed to screw the screws back in and went to a nearby gas station to inflate the tires. With only 15 miles left on the tires, I think I'll keep an eye on them and use a tire pressure regulator if the pressure drops too much. About 5 miles from home, I noticed the tire was still leaking air. I put it in the tire and it leaked some green stuff, but I tried it anyway. Just as I was getting back into my car, a large truck pulled into my garage. This truck is very large and has very large tires. It was tall and looked like it needed a ladder to get in, and the driver seemed to be trying to make a point, and I recognized him. The truck came from somewhere, and a tall driver in cowboy boots and a large belt buckle got out. I laughed at his outfit, but my amusement quickly faded when the passenger door opened and a slender, pretty-faced woman appeared before me. A head of dark hair caught my eye, and I recognized her instantly. It was my wife of 18 years, Megan. I pulled over, and they didn't even notice my car. It was a company car, one of those little cars. So maybe it's just because they're holding hands walking to the store, and she's smiling. She was obviously enjoying her time with him, and I felt like I'd been punched hard in the stomach, unable to breathe and unable to move. Then I realized where I'd seen that guy before. He worked at the same place as Megan. He's the office manager at the mental health clinic and one of the social workers. I've seen his truck at her work before. How did Megan end up with him? I couldn't think of his name for a moment, but then I thought of Jerry Garner. But why wasn't Megan at work? I went back to the car and waited, and when they came out of the store, Jerry helped Megan into the car. They were both holding coffee cups, and I followed them at a safe distance. I waited in the driveway for half an hour for the door to close. This situation makes me nervous, so I've been checking, but everything seems to be fine now. I cover my face with a folder, just in case. Megan didn't get off work until 5 o'clock. It was 2 a.m., and I had plenty of time to see her. I have to pick up my 15-year-old daughter, Valerie. I didn't know how to explain it to her, and I couldn't even imagine what I'd find inside, but I had. When I went in, the whole house felt tense, and the only sound was the dripping of the faucet. In the bathroom of Valerie's house, where I'd been planning to fix the air conditioner, the humming was soft, but as soon as I looked at I went upstairs and noticed that the sheets on the bed were new. I felt completely numb when I saw me finally lean against the wall and slide to the floor. I sat there in a daze for about 30 minutes, my thoughts racing. I was startled, and my stomach began to feel sick, so I stood up and got a soda. After taking it out of the fridge, I felt hot and sweaty, so I went to the bathroom and got a towel, wet it, and walked to the sink. I splashed cold water on my face, which made me feel better. I went back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I felt like I was daydreaming that this was Megan and her lover just in bed. I jumped in horror. This is where it all happened, and I didn't know what to do next. But other than that, I was completely lost. I didn't know any lawyers, and I didn't know where to start. What do I tell Valerie when I pick her up from school? Overwhelmed and confused, I stumbled out of the house feeling like I'd been on a bender for days. My head hurt, and I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, and I knew I shouldn't be driving, but I couldn't keep Valerie waiting. She was real. The only person I can trust right now, my little girl, has to be okay. I have to make sure that she's everything that I've done from now on. When I walk to the dealership and see her, I have to look out for her. As she waited at the school gate, she walked to her car with a familiar grace that made my heart ache. Valerie's eyes were dark brown with a hint of gold, like her mother's, with dark hair and Mediterranean features. Doctors call them hazel, but to me they are unique. Her legs were long, her complexion was honey, and she was so beautiful that it always took my breath away. I put my backpack on the back seat and climbed in, and when she came over to kiss me, she stopped and froze, feeling something in. Dad, what's wrong with you? Did something happen? Is Mom okay? Did something happen? I just want to talk to you. Let's go to the park. I'll explain everything there. And please don't ask any more questions until we get there, okay? Okay? Dad, but you. I'm a little scared. I know I told her everything would be fine, I hope I'm not comforting myself. I've pushed her on the swing more times than I can count. I had spent countless hours on those benches watching her play, and those happy days were all I had left. Recalling the good times, we walked over to a bench and Valerie took my hand and swung it back and forth like. I sat down and tried to find the right words to express how I felt. Valerie kept holding my hand. When I finally ran out of words, she snuggled up next to me and said, "Daddy," she said that we need to go home and talk to Mom and hear her take on things. I know, it doesn't look good, but we don't know the whole story yet. We need to ask her. She thought about it for a moment. A smile came to her face, and she agreed to drive us home. Megan's car was parked in the garage when we arrived. You'd never guess she was involved in anything dishonorable. Either that, or she's putting on a show. You want to know what happened? I said, "It's on me, Mom." Valerie said, "Everything's okay. Honey?" Megan asked. With a concerned look on her face, Valerie said, "Let's go inside and take a look around." And I sat down. She asked Valerie, "How are you doing? Were you in Valerie's office that day?" "You were in the office all day, Megan?" "Valerie, why are you asking these questions? What's going on? You weren't home with Jerry Garner this afternoon?" "Megan, of course." "Valerie, you're accusing me of something that I see in you, Megan, and I don't see." "Valerie, are you trying to cover something up?" "He's not lying, Megan. I'm not calling Angel. Davy Jones, he's your boss, isn't he? I doubt he'd lie for you. What's his phone number? I'll call you tomorrow. What are you two trying to pull on me? What are you accusing me of?" "I think you're the one who made the mistake." She finally admitted it. "That's exactly why I didn't want to tell you. I knew you'd torture me and accuse me of something that no one has accused you of anything yet," Valerie said. "But now we're the ones you're trying to make it out to. Looks like Daddy's lying just to cover your own lies." "Mom, are you dating that Jerry guy?" "I met him a couple times," and Valerie responded to his looks. "I don't like it, but we're not here to talk about it." "Megan, did you have an affair with him?" "I didn't want it to come to this." She finally said I wasn't ready. "I'm in love with Jerry, Megan, and I'm sorry, Fred. It's just, we work well together, and I don't know if he feels like he's all I have. I would have told you when the time was right, but we're both divorced." "Valerie, everything's going to be fine. You can see your dad anytime you want. Jerry's got a nice place by the lake. Oh, and he's got a daughter. I bet you'd like her." "Are you crazy, Valerie?" "I'm not going to live with that idiot. He'll probably sneak into my room at night or something. There's no way I'm going to. I want to be with Dad. I'll never be with you again. How could you do this?" I heard the click of the lock on the door, and Megan looked at me and closed the door with a thud. She said, "Megan, that he's a really nice guy, and if you ever met him, I think you'd like him. But I need to be happy, and Jerry makes me happy, and that's all that matters." I looked at her confused. What was she talking about? "I told you, whatever, Megan. I'm not moving out. I don't have anywhere to go. Jerry's married, so we're moving out. We can't do anything until we talk to his wife. We need to get the divorce finalized and then see how the settlement goes." I firmly told her, "You have 3 days left," and her mouth dropped open in surprise. "What are you talking about? You can't kick me out of my own house. If anyone should move out, it's you. You're forgetting one thing. I told you, this is my house. It was mine before I met you. This place wasn't marital property before we got married, and my name is on the deed, not yours, so you're the one who's going to have to move." She asked me where I should go. "Are you going to throw me out on the street?" "I don't care where you go," I said. "Maybe you can find a room at a cheap motel or one of those places that rents out rooms by the hour, or maybe a motel or one of those. Those rent by the hour places. You know, the kind of place where people like you end up." She said, "I didn't plan on falling in love with Jerry. It was just that we hit it off and I fell in love with him. I know I wanted to be with him, and I didn't mean to hurt you, so you accidentally hurt me. I think that's fine. No need to troll me anymore," she said. "Why can't you just accept that we love each other?" Fred said, "I don't know, Megan. You told me this morning that you love me. Now you're saying you love him. I'm a little confused. I've always been in love with you. It's just that I'm in love with Jerry." "Oh, well, then everything you've told me is clear. Every day for the last 18 years, you've been saying you're in love with me. I guess I was just fooling myself that we were in love. I'm pulling away from you, and I'm giving you 3 days, Megan," I said, "if you don't go. Then I'll call the sheriff and put your stuff on the lawn. Please, Fred." She sounded scared when she said that. "It doesn't have to end like this. We can still be friends. Jerry wants to be friends with you, too. We have Valerie. I've already told you that I still care about you, that I don't want to lose you as a friend, that we've been together too long to just throw everything away. I looked at her for a moment, feeling my feelings of sadness and loss overcome by a wave of pure, burning rage. You must be out of your mind. Megan, I don't think so. You need to tell him that. If he sees me, he better make sure it's just for a second. Then he's scrambling because you're enemy. Now I'm going to fix this house. You have 3 days to pack up and leave. After that, I never want to see you again. I'll call my lawyer first thing in the morning and we'll get a divorce. She followed me and said she wanted to be my friend as she walked. All her things were in the guest room, and there were too many clothes in the closet for her to carry at once. When she went to hang the clothes, I took the opportunity to take them to the guest room and put them away. I heard her try to turn the handle and then walk away for a few minutes. Later, Valerie texted me, "Dad, are you okay? You're not great, but I'm going to be okay. I love you. Can you take me to school in the morning?" It was 12 a.m. At 3 p.m., my cell phone alarm went off. When I got up, I took a quick shower and then called my boss and told him I was going through a divorce and needed some time off. I made some coffee and had a couple cups. She came down just in time to prepare breakfast for Valerie A. NDI. She looked as cute as ever and ate quickly. During the meal, Megan finally came in with a cup of coffee and tried to chat us up, but we ignored her. I looked at her, then turned to my daughter and asked, "Are you ready?" Ready, sweet. Valerie picks up her backpack and Megan says, "Well, you two can act like kids if you want." I dropped Valerie off at school and she gave me a kiss and went inside. I stayed in the car for a while, watching her walk in, and then started thinking about my friend Dan, who had just been in a car accident. So I'd like to call him and find out which attorney he used. My wife's attorney gave me the name, and when I called, I checked the number, and a woman answered the phone. After I explained my needs, she put me on hold and said she could see me that afternoon, so I arranged for I've got some investments I need to settle, and it's going to be tricky to keep Megan out of debt. I called and lowered the limit on my credit cards to $500 each. It would be an inconvenience for me as well, but I don't mind, and I'm happy to fund her program. She seemed to have some misconceptions about why I was there, so I had to clear things up first. She thought I was leaving Megan for a newer model, so I had to correct her impression first. Reconsider Megan's cheating with her co-workers, both of whom are married and planning to leave their spouses. She looked uncomfortable and said, "I'm sorry, I can't take a case like that. I understand, but we have a daughter, and I want to handle this in the most peaceful way possible. Can you do that?" She replied that it was possible, but that legally either parent could be denied custody. However, fathers often face challenges in obtaining custody, especially for teenage girls. "Does she want to be with you?" "She's 15. I said she wants to be with me, which is fine." He said that in this state, children over the age of 14 can choose where they want to live, while the preferences of younger children. If she was younger, it would be more difficult, but since she is 15 and wants to live with her, you should strongly support your case, and that should be enough for the office too. I don't know what to do next. I know I need to take action, but it has to be legal. I can't let that happen. I need to think about it. I have to be careful because I don't want to burn anyone. I need to plan carefully and thoughtfully. I suspect Jerry's wife is probably as confused as I am, so the first thing I'm going to do is get her to. Knowing what had happened, I made a mental list of things that needed to be done, and notifying my family was definitely at the top of the list. Megan's parents love me and Valerie, so I had to tell them too. While I do plan on letting all of our friends know the news, I think I may be getting enough attention on social media. My main mission was to find out about Megan, who has a family. I know she has an account on Facebook because she uses Messenger, and I check it sometimes. Jerry's Wi-Fi is also active on Facebook, and I took a couple screenshots and posted on Megan's page about the divorce, said she found a soulmate in Jerry and included a picture of him. Then I changed my password and logged her out. I'm wondering how long it will take for her friends and family to start contacting her. I hope Jerry's wife understands that I don't know her, so I apologize a little for the confusion. But if she's like me, she'd rather know the truth than be kept in the dark. Mom's conversation was pretty much what I expected at first. She was shocked, but she said she'd tell my dad that they'd support me in whatever I needed. They're very close. I don't want to be evil. I don't even know how to explain your daughter's situation to them. Cheating doesn't seem like a good place to start, and they even blame me for it. 2 p.m. I got a message from Megan, and I replied to her and she was very angry and started off by saying, "I know you blocked me on Facebook. You have to delete it. Jerry's wife doesn't know yet. My friends are calling me on the phone, and I'm asking them what happened. The parents already know. Fred, you'd better delete it." "No, I won't delete it." I said, "Are you 5 years old? Delete it, Fred, I mean it. I asked you why you did it. Shouldn't you be glad that everyone knows the whole story about you and your new friend?" Confidant. "Do you feel embarrassed that people know you cheated?" "Fred, please take it down. This isn't how it's supposed to be. From the moment you cheated on me, I lost control of the situation. I was worried you'd be upset, but I'm here to help you." I ended the call, and she called again, but I didn't pick up. When I went to pick up Valerie, I told her that Elizabeth Basser said she'll probably stay with me, but she's still upset. She asked me what happened to Mom and Dad, and I love her, but she always seemed a little out of sorts, like she never really grew up. Unlike you, sometimes I feel like I have two kids. She and I, did you notice this too? Though I didn't, now that you mention it, she was always a bit of a impulse. I just didn't think she'd go this far. Dad, I don't want to be in the same house with that guy if you don't go out of your way to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm calling Bob Megan's father, and I'm not looking forward to this. I told Valerie who was calling. She suggested putting her on speakerphone, and I asked her to leave, but did she tell you why? She says she'll explain later. But she's not ready yet. Do you want me to wait for her to explain? I'm sure she'll say something. Did you hear she was having an affair with Jerry Garner? His wife is planning to divorce him. This is crazy, Fred. How do you know? I caught them together yesterday. She even told me herself. He asked Valerie, who replied, "Grandpa, I've been listening. I was there when my mom told him she was sorry and that she loved him, and she started to cry, and so did he. When he spoke again, his voice trembled a little. He said he loved her too, and her grandmother loved her, and he said he'd find a way to make her mom see reason. Yeah, I'm here, Bob. I'm sorry about all this. Don't worry. Valerie, you're her grandfather. That's not going to change, and I know you care about Megan. You'll do what you have to do, and I really respect you and Cindy, and I hope you don't hate me when this is over." I said I would find out what happened, and if you needed anything, please feel free to call me. We all know that life can be full of surprises, so just do your best, and there's no need to go into detail. Most people know how the divorce process works. Obviously delusional to think that I ended up with full custody of Valerie, and Miss Basil is as good as they come. The judge decided that Megan could visit her, but she couldn't be left alone with Jerry Garner, and that wasn't a problem. Anyway, Jerry's wife divorced him, and the result was, just 2 weeks after I found out he was already having an affair, the whole soulmate thing was more fantasy than reality. Their big plans fell through, and the divorce took 7 months to finalize. During our second court appearance, Megan surprised me by asking if we could change the judge's mind. So we were ordered to attend 8 or 10 sessions, and in the end our therapist was a very strange hippie. At the beginning of the first meeting, we explained what we wanted to get out of it, and Megan said such a long, complicated paragraph. She explains that it's as if she thinks the universe should revolve around making her happy, and she's just being. My goal is much simpler, and that is to spread joy, not cause harm. What is the goal of a therapist? I say, Mr. Bean, you seem to have no interest in solving these problems. I'm sorry, Mr. Rodman, but I don't think my problem is the root cause. I'm happy with my situation. I'm not going to fix them until I die, Megan said with a shocked look on her face. Fred asked me if I didn't expect to solve any problems, and I answered, I'm here because the court asked me to be, and I'll do everything I can to fulfill the court's request, and then we'll go. My plan is to go back to court and finalize the divorce. And if I'm, tell the judge you won't cooperate, and you could be held in contempt. The therapist asked me, I don't know, but if you lied to the judge, I'm sure my attorney would be happy to get the recordings of those meetings to prove it. I have told you my goals, and I am cooperating with you. The judge wanted you to try to fix things. He said I didn't. I told him I was just. He's trying to put me in a difficult position. The task he set for us is going to cost a lot of money. After spending so much time together, Megan really pushed me to change my mind, Fred. I told her it was God's will. She looked at me. She was waiting for me to explain, but I didn't say anything more, and after a while, she asked me, what do you mean by natural disaster? If you can figure out a way to turn back time and undo everything Jerry has done, then it'll work, otherwise I don't know. Who else but God could do this? We do the same boring exercises, and repeat the same tasks until we finally get back to the courtroom. The judge asks if we're making any progress, and Elizabeth Basser says, "Your Honor, there's no way my client wants to stick around. We are hoping to finalize our divorce soon. My client and his daughter have been." The judge seemed to agree, because 10 days later, Valerie's divorce decree arrived in the mail. Because she loves her grandparents and goes to their house often, she spends a lot of time with her mother, Megan. Valerie occasionally planned things that Valerie would like to be a part of, but it was never like this, where Valerie spent most of her time hanging out. She spent time with her friends, especially with a girl named Sue. Sue was a small, cute blonde who practically lived with us. I was glad to have her around, and soon they started involving me in their activities. One of their favorite things is the water, and we have a boat, so during summer vacation we usually. One Monday, Valerie and Sue asked if we could go to the lake that weekend, and they said, "We can go. I'd like to bring the camper and stay until Sunday afternoon. My schedule is pretty free, so I think it's a good opportunity." Valerie and Sue spent a whole week planning. On Friday afternoon, a brand new red Jeep Cherokee pulled into our driveway, and Sue got out of the car. Valerie stepped out from the driver's side and gave her a big hug. "She's Julia, Sue's mom. I don't think you've met her." Uriah held out her hand and greeted Fred. "The girls talk about you a lot. Thank you for inviting me to this weekend. I'm a little jealous that they spend so much time with you and not me." I looked at Valerie, and she looked at me solemnly. When I catch a glimpse of Sue raising an eyebrow, I realize it's time to give in. I told Julia it was going to be a good weekend, and I try to regain my composure. We always have a lot of fun. She wasn't fooled. She looked from me to the girls and then back to me. I said, "Don't you know those girls didn't give Uriah a chance. Before she could react, they were hugging and kissing her." Sue pleaded, "Mom, don't worry, we're going to have a lot of fun." Valerie added, "It's okay. Papa Julia is a good man. You'll like him as much as I do." See how easy it was to convince him. Julia finally broke free, looked at the girls and said, "You two go sit on the porch. I need to talk to you." She said she wanted to talk to Fred for a while, and the girls hesitated, but when she said now, they hurried away. "I'm really sorry, Fred. I didn't realize. She'll be grounded for a month. It's embarrassing." I hugged her, and at first she was nervous. Then she relaxed a bit, which was a relief. "You think she's cute, don't you? I told you weren't married, didn't I? She's really cute. Do you think this has anything to do with me saying you're all pock? Kid, you've got the weekend free. It's going to be fun at the lake when the weather's nice. I'm not a bad guy, right? You've been around Valerie all the time. So, why don't we just do it? It'll be fun, and we'll teach the girls a lesson, don't you think?" From their camping chairs under the awning, the girls looked at us with hopeful smiles and whispered to each other, "Girls, that's not what I said." Sue looked at me and smiled. I could tell she was trying. "The girls made me laugh," she said. "They're so cute, and I know what you're trying to do, but seriously, don't play." Valerie tried to defend herself, "But I really like Julia, and I don't know how to get you. You could have just told me," and I said you looked a little frustrated, so I moderated my tone. "Well, stop it." She cheered right up, grabbed my arm, and said, "Come on, I'm so excited. Would be amazing, Fred. You will see Uriah laugh. Amazingly is a big compliment." Fred said she was right. We were getting dark, and we took a couple of bags from Julia's Jeep and loaded them in. After a quick stop at the camper and a fill-up of gas, we were off. While the girls were in the back playing horrible music on their Bluetooth speakers, we chatted in the front and got. Turns out Yulia runs her own insurance company and does financial planning. She works for an insurance company and is in charge of financial planning, and as we talked, I thought how cute she must be. Julia looks much younger than me, but she's only 3 years younger than me. She was petite, with light blonde hair down to her waist, tan skin, and big brown eyes that sparkled. She has high cheekbones and a heart-shaped face with a widow's peak. Widow's peak was slim and shapely in jeans and a button-down shirt, and I didn't want to sound. Oddly enough, I tried not to look at her too much until we got to the lake, and we parked the boat, then the camper and the girls. While they changed, I used the time to hook up the water. We changed into swim trunks and t-shirts and got ready to head to the lake. When we pulled out of the no-fly zone, I throttled up and took us for a couple of miles. Across the lake, the girls were so eager to ski that they took off their long t-shirts and changed into their usual ski gear. She's not tall, but she's full of confidence when she turns around to watch the game. I couldn't help but notice that she looked great in her bathing suit, which wasn't overly revealing but fit well. Her suit covered her curves well, but it was hard not to notice, especially since she had big, mesmerizing eyes. She is petite, very friendly, and she has everything just right. She wore a smile that made the moment easy and pleasant. She smiled and said, "Julia, you know how you look? I'm just a guy. What can I say?" For the next couple hours, we chatted as we skied. She showed off her skills and even took over driving the boat when it was my turn, and she was great at that too. But when we got back to the park, and everyone had changed into their new clothes, I managed to stand up. Even though the camper has a really nice kitchen, the girls wanted to cook outside, so we set up the kitchen in the camper. I put the sausage on while the girls chopped potatoes and mashed potatoes, onions and open cans of baked beans. We had prepared and packed some meals earlier. But we sat down at the picnic table that came with the campground, and it felt like we were. Julia called herself Jell at first, and the girls loved it. She even started calling me Julia. Freddie, the girls mentioned a couple times that Joe wasn't married, and I finally asked her, "You're beautiful." She paused for a moment before saying, "Good answer," mainly because Sushi ended up saying I was young and, naively, I was in my last year of college, thinking I had found my true love when I found out I was pregnant. The week before graduation, I wasn't too upset because we had agreed to get married as soon as we graduated. I said no, and she confirmed it 3 days after I did. I told Brad about the baby. I found out he was cheating on me for a month, and I left him. When Sue was born, I was focusing on building my business. When I considered dating again, I truly realized that I had an incredible gift, and that was that everything I did had to include her. Like I said, I feel the same way about Valerie, and as long as I still have her, she's my number one priority, and she's been my rock. For the past 18 months, Uriah has put her little hand on my arm and said, "I know she can talk." I'm really sorry, Freddie. Life is hard sometimes. I agree. Like I said, we're all sorry. Sighing, we looked over at the girls, who were sitting in their camping chairs watching us with loving smiles on their faces. Julia said that Sue recently told her that you were like the father she never had. I wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with my fingers. She's a really great girl, and you've done a lot for her. You've done a marvelous job raising her, and it must have taken a lot of courage. She stood up and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek before joining the group when Julia's time came. The weekend was fantastic. I walked over to her car and tapped on the window. "Hey girls, want to hang out with me next time?" On Friday, I asked Sue, and she squealed with excitement and flashed me her big smile. At about 6 o'clock, I suggested that we could have dinner together and do something fun afterward. "Well, if Valerie accompanies Sue while we're out, I suggest we could have dinner together and have some fun afterward," said JL. She gave me another kiss on the cheek, and then they left. She excitedly asked me if I had asked her out and if I had kissed her. I did ask her out. "It's none of your business." She screamed like Sue, and I knew she was good for you. "Dad, I love her so much. Sue is like a sister to me, no matter what happens." "Valerie, you can't force these things. Stop being a matchmaker." She snuggled into my chest. "I know, Dad, but—" I smiled. "I wouldn't mind being the only woman in your life. You will always have a special place in my heart, Valerie. You are my girl, and that will never change." We had a great first date, and I took her on a play date. She had never played racquetball before, but had played tennis, so the basic moves were familiar. Used to the rules and hitting the wall, she was amazing. She was super fast and changed direction faster than I did, which was a big advantage for the petite me. After we finished our drinks, we took a breather at a table outside the stadium over a glass of wine. She sent a snapshot of the girls, suggesting we pose with our rackets and goggles, and she took a picture of the girls responding to it. The next night we showered and I took her to dinner and we went to a great Italian restaurant. Here, we eat too much. I couldn't help but think how lovely she was, and I realized that no matter how much time passed, she was always. When we got to her house, she looked at me with that look in her eyes and said she wanted me to give her a kiss, and that felt better than me kissing her. When we parted, her soft lips smelled of wine and cherry lip balm. I noticed the curtains moving slightly, and it looked like we might have an audience. She laughed and said, "I'm not surprised. You knew they were trying to set us up." I asked her, and she blushed a little and replied, "Not at all. I like it. Everything I know about you, Freddie, I know about you too." We went out every Friday for 4 months, and it just got better and better. I didn't want to rush it, but our dates were becoming more frequent. We're both friends and girlfriends, and we often chat on the phone, sharing funny pictures and information. Throughout the day, I shared anything that caught my attention or made me laugh because I knew she would appreciate it. We were getting closer and closer, and it felt great to know all the details of each other's lives. And we even started having dinner together. Every Tuesday with the girls, I find that I like Sue almost as much as her mother does. And they're so similar that if you get to know one and you get to know the other very well, there are differences between the two, but both have a charm that makes the similarities more obvious. But there's still one thing that bothers me. Megan, she's still Valerie's life, which means she's still in my life, and I don't want anything to do with her, and I don't know what to do about it. When I'm with her, she's always trying to hit on me. Now that Megan has lost her job at the clinic with Jerry, she's staying with her grandparents. If she starts bothering me, I'll ask her if she's heard from Jerry. She asked me how long it would take. And I'm sorry for what I did to you. I don't think you did anything. I've never heard you say you're sorry, Fred. I was wrong. I'm sorry. You're trying to make Valerie think you're lying or trying to take Valerie away from you, and I apologize for complicating things. Of course. I see. She didn't say any of this. She couldn't admit it, and I didn't even. I don't know what it means to forgive her. I've moved on and found peace. I don't waste my time complaining. People make mistakes and sometimes they do really bad things, but you have to. At first, I wanted to get back at Jerry and Megan for what they did, but I soon realized that they're being punished just for being who they are, and they have to live with the decisions they've made, and I need to. I want to leave behind all the lies and betrayals and live my best life. While I don't wish her any real harm, I would never be the one to cause her pain. I think that if there is any cosmic justice, it has been resolved with Jerry and Megan, and I'm done with the drama. One night, after I dropped Valerie off at her house, Megan found out I was dating Julia, and she seemed even more pissed off. While spending the night at my grandparents' house, Megan came out and stopped my car, and she said you were dating the mother of one of the kids. Valerie's friends. Is it true that I just looked at her? I replied that it had nothing to do with me, and she shot back that I was her ex-wife. I have a right to know, and as far as I'm concerned, you don't. I told her you chose someone else, and now we're. My life is mine. Your life is yours. Stay out of my business. That's how Megan is. She was very angry when I left, and just wouldn't seem to let go. I've always kept my distance from Megan, but sometimes she just can't help herself. At dinner, Julia talked and laughed as she ate. I gave her a look when she ordered her second drink. I think I'm getting a little wild tonight. Huh? She said. I smiled and replied, You're perfect as always. Do you really think so, Freddie? I think you're perfect, too. I said perfect. So, why don't you invite me to spend the night with you? She teased me, and I must have been surprised because she suddenly burst out laughing. She was making fun of me again, and I consoled myself with the fact that I'd been thinking about it for a long time. Especially since we started dating, I realize how special you are, and I don't want to pressure you or. I told the girls not to wait for me, she said with a smile. Do you want to spend the night with me? I asked her, and she blushed, taking my hand and asking me to help her up. She said that this was more important than anything right now. When we left, we went to the bedroom, and I turned her around and put her at the foot of the bed. When we finally broke apart to catch our breath, she said, That was one of the best kisses I've ever had. She looked at me with those warm brown eyes, put her arms around my neck, and said, Make love to me, Fred. I'm a man. Don't be afraid. I love you, Jel. You know that. I thought you knew. She whispered, but I needed to hear her voice. I love you too. Fred, I carried her around the bed, her arms still around me. I gently laid her down on the bed, careful to move over her and not put too m. You can wait on her. I whispered in her ear 3 times and she mumbled, but never like this. Oh God, Freddie, I feel so. She exclaimed, Wow, you're incredible. We cuddled up and made love again. The next morning, I woke up with her on top of me, her hair draped over me. Her cheek rested against my shoulder, and I watched in awe as she fell asleep, playing with her hair. Until she stirred and opened her eyes, I snuggled closer and let out a satisfied sigh as she murmured, You belong here, Freddie. I know you want to wake up like this every day. She looked at me and asked yes, but I was really asking if you wanted to. Julie Barnes held up her tiny left hand, wiggled her fingers, and smiled. It looks like something's missing. Wait a minute. I started to get up from the bed, and I was hugging the. She laughed at the thought, but I couldn't hold it in any longer, and I really had to go to the restroom. A slap made her go, yelp, and then she ran back and stormed off naked. I walked energetically toward my office, stopping by the bathroom on the way to grab a few things I needed for the safe. I went back to the bed, took her left hand in mine, and looked into her eyes, and I knew what she was thinking. I looked into her eyes again and saw nothing but love. Uriah, will you marry me? She slipped the ring on her finger. It was a little big and needed to be resized, but it fit perfectly now. He said it was beautiful and looked like it was from another era. Where did you get it? There was an auction about a month ago, and as I recall, they were auctioning off an estate, but what I didn't tell you is that I saw this ring in a catalog and was going to buy it and ask you to marry me. The Duchess of Avon was filmed in England around 1810, and it has a lot of history to it. I love it. It's the most beautiful ring I've ever seen. Will you marry me? She laughed and gave me a big hug.